Constantly shifting through the time-space continuum, Metron's three disciples observe the universe from the Mobius Couch.
What's love got to do with it? What's love but a secondhand emotion? What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be placed on the Mobius Couch? A time-space interdimensional vehicle from which your hosts oversee the world of comics and comic book movies. Ladies and gentlemen, today's lyrical intro is, of course, What's Love Got to Do with It, which is 1984's number 2 hit single. And it's number 2 because we're going to continue Saga of the Swamp Thing. If you listen to episode 1, you'll know that we talked about Prince's When Doves Cry, which was the number 1 song of 1984. Which is fitting for part 1. Part 2, of course, features me, Alessandro, one of your usual hosts. I'm joined by Patrick.
Hello, Alessandro. Good to see you again.
Hey, buddy. It's been a full week since we recorded part 1.
2 weeks.
Been a full 2
bi-weekly.
weeks. And here joining us is also Joe.
Oh, hello.
Hey, Joe.
Oh, hey, Patty.
Oh, hey, Joe. As
hey,
also.
You know what? Me, Patrick, and our guest to be are wearing nondescript black T-shirts, but I feel like that could be any week in time. But Al,
it's a standard black tee. It could be now, or it could be 2 weeks ago.
Recognizable. It's definitely been a week.
It's been 2 weeks. I just happened to wear the same thing.
2 weeks.
And joining us, of course, is certified Swamp Thing enthusiast Dave. Dave, welcome back.
Hey again. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. All right.
Hello,
so
muck encrusted David of a man.
Hello.
Muck encrusted.
Think of
Get that muck off of you.
Different title.
Also, how do you spell Dave? I need you to spell Dave. All right. We'll get to that. We'll get to Paul in a second. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't listen to part 1, please listen to part 1 because we go into a lot of the background of the Saga of the Swamp Thing by Alan Moore, Stephen Bissette, John Totleben, and Tatiana Wood. Was that the colorist?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So please listen to part 1 because we go into kind of the setup and the earlier issues. We are going to do just a no intro basically and get right into issue 24 to 27, which is going to be this episode. So getting right into it. Again, we've already done overall takes and all that in part 1.
Spoilers
so
for all overall our takes. We all loved it.
Yeah, we all loved it. Oh, also, if you haven't listened to part 1, please do so on iTunes, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Please follow the podcast. Like the podcast, review it, like our YouTube channel. We're on TikTok, Mobius Couch, at Mobius Couch, the Mobius Couch. It's all over. I was mid-sentence.
No, you weren't.
I was mid-sentence with...
I was playing you off.
I guess I'm done then. Whoever wants to talk about issue 24, I guess I'm done. Okay, I've been played off. Roots.
So, I always assumed that was added in post. I didn't realize that was a thing in the middle of
That's why, Dave, a little behind the scenes look at why I'm continually angry.
So enter the Justice League, or they don't, which I love about this episode or this issue.
This issue,
they're a complete lack of ability to do anything. Like the cover is like the Justice League is going to be in this episode, in this issue, and then like you get into the issue and they're just like, "What the fuck do we do?" And they're like, "I don't know." And then by the end, they're like, "Oh, look, it solved itself."
This issue to me smells of DC saying, "Hey, we want you to introduce the Justice League because that's going to sell issues." And Alan Moore saying,
"I don't." More going like the Justice League wouldn't have done anything, and here's why.
No, but that's what I mean. I think it's DC saying that. It's more saying, I don't want to do the Justice League. And it's DC saying, you have to do the Justice League. And then more saying, okay.
And then doing this. Like, maybe that's true. That's very possibly true, honestly. But like, I kind of like it in just the sense of more going like, hey, some problems can't be solved by Superman and the rest of them. And here's why, like kind of thing. And I really like that. their discussion throughout of like what's going on, because their pages are sort of interspersed throughout the conflict, and like what's going on, and like as the conflict unfolds and it gets worse from their perspective of like, oh my god, the entire planet's like filling with oxygen and like it's going crazy, and like, what do we do about that? I don't know. Like they're like, call these people Green Lantern, and he's like, that's not gonna work because of this, and like that kind of thing. Like there's just so many instances of them not being they're figuring out the problem, but at the same time they can't do anything about it, and I kind of love that. You know, like it's also, this is a quintessential issue of like why I don't think he draws regular superheroes well.
No, I agree with that.
It's very super frenzy, so it's like, and I mean that like literally the cartoon, like just very like, especially at the end with Green Lantern and Superman, but like just it's just not like, it's not good. It doesn't fit with the horror aspect of the book. It doesn't.
Well,
fit
one thing I would say is,
you know,
they draw the Justice League in a horrific way. Like Firestorm is terrifying. Right here.
Yeah.
Like the way they sort of overshadow all these, they don't look like heroes. They look like kind of creepy, brooding aliens in a spaceship. Reading this comic, I don't get the feeling of comfort. And looking at the Justice League, they seem scary.
No, I definitely went back and forth on what Joe was saying about whether or not it's a good idea to bring the Justice League in here, because I think bringing the greater DC universe into Swamp Thing, I think it has the potential of like minimizing him as a character, because he's not like a world threat challenging hero. But it definitely feels like they stepped into a horror comic and they're not prepared for that milieu. Like even at the beginning when they describe him, like it's the house where the over people gather. Like it's already this menacing idea of like these others that look over us. And the way that he describes the Justice League, I love how he says, a man who moves so fast, his life is an endless gallery of statues.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That was quoted. Incredible. I think Len Wein even quoted that in the foreword, by the way. That's one of the best. So the idea, the last issue when and we talked about this weeks ago in our other episode, but the small town calls a city, the city calls Washington, Washington calls the Justice League. So like they're aware of the problem that's happening that Woodrue is doing to the planet. But they watch the tape, so they get to watch the same tape, and you see a little bit of it, but like basically they know that Woodrue is like murdering people, so they're like, oh shit, this is a real fucking thing that we have to handle, kind of thing. But their inability to take action based on like, I don't know, just what can Green Lantern provide? I don't know. He has alien friends that are plant-based, and he's like, yeah, but those plants are completely different from our plants on Earth, and just so on and so on. Like the way that they like kind of go, like, what about this? And then they're like, well, no, the other one somebody else Hawkman will shoot that down, kind of thing. It's really very interesting how it's illustrated that the Justice League is incapable of handling this issue.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Moore was making a sort of an economic commentary, but I thought it was interesting how he just portrayed the Justice League as just this very kind of deadlocked, almost corporate, like meeting heavy group of we have this new threat, we're not sure how to deal with it. And because all of these are incredibly powered people who any one of them individually could just fly down and snuff out Woodrue with like that.
Well, Green Arrow could.
But they don't. Well, except for Green Arrow, I'm sure has a boxing glove arrow that could knock out Woodrue.
I mean, he does.
But so all of these individually could just
arrow.
But all of them individually could just take action and end it. But instead, they're deadlocked in this kind of like hyper meeting. Like, should we have to investigate and know what to do and how to act? So I'm not sure what kind of commentary he was making on the state of the Justice League, but it seemed it was interesting. I want to pick.
That's why I think it's hard to pin down if it's the editors pushing this on him or if it's him going, let me just illustrate how ineffectual they would be. Right.
If I had to bet, I'd bet it was DC saying you got to do something with our heroes.
But I mean, Swamp Thing was popular in its own right at the time, as we've discussed last episode.
More like
the
series was declining when Pasco left and Moore took over.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely was on the upswing at this point. I think it had already become one of DC's like top 3 best-selling books each month by this point. So yeah, I really go back and forth on it too, whether this was an editorial request or if more
Maybe they shoved the Justice League to make them more popular. Like it might be the opposite of what we're assuming.
Yeah, again, I don't have any info here, but if I had to bet, I'd say it was DC saying you have to use the Justice League because we need it.
Because it's the Justice League.
And Moore was saying like, fine, I'll put them in, but then he put them in as just dithering, meeting heavy group that doesn't achieve anything.
I think like Green Lantern.
Yeah. Like
Sorry,
later
go ahead.
in I want to say 46. They made him include a crossover with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and you can just
I'm sure he loved that. Yeah,
like it's the whole crossover is Swamp Thing being like teleported to the like space station. Like, being like, oh look, here's all these people. Here's the Anti-Monitor. I don't know what that is, and then going back to Louisiana. It's like, well, I guess that happened.
Yeah.
And
I want to make
Nonsense.
2 visual notes. I want to make 2 visual notes about the Justice League. One, they're very busy with their hands. Like Superman has his hand on a monitor here. Green Lantern has his hands on the table.
It's fine. It's fine.
They're just very hand busy. And then B, this is a recurring topic on the Mobius Couch. Hawkman's eyes.
The mask in general is just insane.
So
well, that's how his mask looked in the 80s.
I know. I'm
I
just saying, in general, it's an insane character design.
I just want to say the eyes
he has Hawk vision.
But the eyes in this mask here don't look like a hawk's eyes or a human's eyes.
No.
They just look like weird, nondescript eyes. That's not what a hawk eye looks like.
That's exactly what a Hawkeye looks like. I don't know.
No, that's like a snake eye. It's like a
100%
slit. That is not what a hawk's eye looks like.
Hawkeye looks like the eye in Identity Crisis that has like
they have a little like computer monitor of Woodrew's backstory, and it is accurate but dumb as hell, where it says point of origin parallel dimension inhabited by plant elementals. Woodrew banished to Earth AD 1962. Like it's just such like nonsense.
Yep. That's the origin.
Like, why do we have any trouble with this guy? He's like a nobody.
In issue 23, last episode, we mentioned the Evil Dead attempted tree rape.
Yeah.
And now we have an Evil Dead chainsaw.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, that's true.
So a lot of Evil Dead in these.
You're
issues.
jumping through that whole issue. I like Green Arrow just going like, we were watching after New York and Metropolis. Like no one was watching out for La Croix, Louisiana.
Yeah.
No one's looking out for LA Croix.
I did. So I agree with Al that I think they did force him to put the Justice League in this because it breaks the pacing up of the story so oddly to have all the bright colors and everything. And I do agree that Alan Moore used them in a way to elevate Swamp Thing. I think. I mean, I guess if you're trying to pull in new readers outside of the horror genre, having the Justice League tease on the cover, and then showing
that's
Swamp Thing is
that's
handling.
what it comes down to. It's a tease on the cover. Like it's like enter the Justice League, and then you get into the issue, and you're like, they don't enter at all.
Yeah, they
just hang out in the back.
Yeah, they're not involved. But that's again, I'm going back to. I think that's why it was DC forcing this on Moore, and Moore just saying, "Sure, I'll put them in my issue, no problem."
Yeah.
And they don't do anything.
Very probable.
But
very
can we?
probable.
Let's talk about. Go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I was just gonna say it elevates Swamp Thing as a hero if you're moving.
It does.
Theme. Yeah, and then it also. I mean, how many times have you had conversations where like, you know, we talked about New X-Men with Genosha. It's like, what the fuck are the Avengers and Fantastic Four? We're like, this is like kind of a funny thing about the Justice League, like showing why.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, buddy. Yeah.
And I also just my final note is I really enjoyed Firestorm being like, I could convert all of the oxygen into carbon dioxide.
And he's like, do you know what that means?
Do you know how many motherfucking oxygen molecules are in the atmosphere? You idiot. What a stupid
That's what I'm saying.
idea.
I love that they all come up with like different ideas and somebody else just goes, no. That's not going to work.
Stupid.
So again, it paints them as ineffectual, but at the same time, it does. To your point, Pat, it does kind of like insert them into the story, so they're not just like, "Where?" So as a reader, you're not going, "Where the fuck was the Justice League in all this? This is worldwide catastrophe," and they're not even responding. Like,
well, it's not worldwide. It's in Louisiana. It's still contained in Louisiana.
No,
it's
worldwide.
It's contaminated. It's worldwide. It's
worldwide.
The oceans and everything.
Oh, right.
But,
Okay. Yeah, it has. Yeah.
It's.
And
it was
anyway, I really
jarring,
like
though,
that
to see,
idea that they're just like up there trying to figure out what to do, and by the time they figure it out, it's hand, like kind of thing.
Yeah, they're just paralyzed by committee. But let's get to, because I really want to talk about Swamp Thing and Woodrew's clash. The dialogue between the two of them I loved this stuff. Well, I loved Woodrew's reaction to when Swamp Thing gets here. Woodrew basically says, you'd gone on to the reward of meadows of oblivion and peace.
Yeah,
why are you here
good.
as a man?
Why are you
like
back?
you had transcended into the green. Why are you here? Which I thought was just a really cool reaction.
Like he's almost jealous. Like he's like, I almost gave you what I want. Like why are you back right now? Kind of thing.
Yeah,
I love that the fight just starts with just like Swamp Thing just backhands him out of the way.
Yeah, he just backhands him 20 feet across.
Which I think is interesting because, like, as a villain, Woodrew stabs him through like the chest as like with vines or something, and I'm like, that he doesn't have a heart. That you literally autopsied his body. Like, that he doesn't like work that way, and you're like, I gotta
try it. You gotta try it. I love Woodrew's. It seems
like a weird gesture to something that he's aware of is like more than just the body that is in front of him.
Art note: I love Woodrew's. Go ahead, Dave. Yeah,
I think Woodrew still, even though he's putting on airs that he has like become the voice of the green.
Yeah,
like truly plant. He's still thinking like a man. He's still thinking, if I stab this guy in the chest, then I'll take him out, and not really even like thinking about, wait a minute, I know better than that. He's just thinking like, oh yeah, I have the power to kill my enemy, so I'll just stab him.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the whole point Swamp Thing makes, is you're not in the green, you're acting like a man, But I love the way they draw Woodrew's expressions, and they really express kind of how unhinged he's become, because like at this point, when Swamp Thing smacks him, he just says, traitor. He's just really angry. Like, you are betraying the green. Let's fight. Mm-hmm. A few pages later, when, Swamp Thing makes the point, Woodrew, like, you're fighting as a man fights. Like, you're not, you're fighting me like that. And so he looks kind of afraid at being called out as like being man-like. Basically, when Swamp Thing says, Woodrew, what you're doing is hurting the green, look at his pained expression. Like, me? Yeah. I'm hurting the green. Like, you can see him.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And then immediately he then reverts to this kind of villainous smirk. But you can see that like he's just completely unhinged psychologically. And when Swamp Thing mentions like what you're doing is actually man-like and you're hurting the green, his immediate, oh no, what? It's just very, I love how they draw his facial expressions. They're really direct. Yeah.
There's an interesting note with the Justice League in this, like the Flash says, this is ridiculous. Ever since we first encountered Woodrew, he's lost every battle he's ever fought, kind of thing. Meaning like he's such a Z-list villain. Like we don't even have to worry about this guy. Like why? And Hawkman is just like every battle perhaps, but this is war. Like, so meaning something's changed within him, and I like that little, however ineffectual they are also furthering the story and like furthering the true conflict that's happening within the issue, which I really enjoyed. They aren't accomplishing anything, but they're kind of illustrating what's going on through their conversation. And that's good.
And I also, so I love the way Swamp Thing, quote unquote, defeats Woodrew so they do have this physical fight that involves chainsaws, as we mentioned. But really the way Swamp Thing defeats him is he just says, he opens Woodrew's eyes to his actions are not the Green's actions. The idea of revenge and destruction and just taking out your enemies. Like
Yeah,
that's
that's red
human
blood.
behavior. That's
a
not
red
the
blood.
green. Yeah. And he makes the point too of, if you killed all the animals, who will then change the oxygen back into the CO2 that we as plants eat? He says the green needs the red to, basically, in essence, the green and the red need to live in balance. And Woodrew's actions of just trying to destroy humanity and the red that's not the green, right? That's not the way of balance and cohabitation and symbiosis.
Yeah, he's upset the natural order, kind of.
And and eventually he does open Woodrew's eyes to that. I mean, he's still like a psychologically broken man, but he does to some degree realize that he's walking the wrong path.
Well, then he reacts like a man too, though, because when he's defeated, and this is also, I mean, it's terrifying, but he's defeated, but he runs away, and the Justice League are coming after him, and he grabs his spray to spray the human skin on him, thinking that he's gonna like fool Superman. What does he say? And that's a terrifying thing.
He's like, I'm a human like you. My name's Jason.
Page 21. Yeah, page 21.
I want to say, so I laughed out loud at this when he goes, I was just doing, normal things. I was driving a car, fishing, those things men do, I do all of that. I lost it when he was saying that. Yeah.
Call me Jason.
He goes,
I'm one of
they
you.
literally
I'm
say
human.
like Woodrew, and he goes, Woodrew, yes, but call me Jason. I'm one of you. I'm human. And he's like wearing a suit. And he's like, the way it's drawn, it's like his arms are flailing around. He's like, look, I'm not a plant. I'm like you.
No, this is the exact line. Like, what's wrong with you? He goes, wrong with me? You mean my arm? Well, I broke it in an accident. I was just, doing something normal, driving a car, fishing, one of those things us men do, and I broke it. I love that. This is great.
One of the things us men do.
Well, it's just funny too, because like instead of acting like a plant and accepting your fate and not fighting it, his fight or flight response kicks in, and he immediately tries to cover his tracks in the most hilariously frightening way possible.
And he does look, because when he sprays the skin spray on, he still has his
he's all
beard and so he
has
just looks horrific, with just like this melting flesh on top of his plant features. And it doesn't fool the Justice League.
It's fucking Superman.
Doesn't it?
Oh yeah, you've got the panel up on the page, but yeah, I was going to point out, I love this series of panels.
Yeah.
Yes.
The dividing lines really give it like a sense of motion, and the way that the two faces kind of blend into each other. I just love that like depicting his moment of realization, where, like you said, he's discovering that like what he thought was the green talking to him was really like the green reflecting what he was bringing into it, and that he was expecting a human response to the pain that he felt, which is not what the green is. The green does not feel the need to get revenge for this, and then he just completely has a mind break. And
well, the realization also cuts him off from the green. He mentions, I can't feel the trees anymore in California or Japan. Like, he is just divorced from the green, realizing. And then, so Swamp Thing and Abby then kind of have a back and forth where he basically lays out, I'm not Alec Holland, on the Swamp Thing. I do want to call out on page 17, the bottom panel here, this image of this kind of like serene smile on the Swamp Thing. It is kind of, for whatever reason, my image I've always had of the Swamp Thing is this, this sort of like serene beatific smile on a plant man who's, above human concerns, is kind of, it's always been sort of my main image of the Swamp Man.
I really enjoy the next page or two. I don't know, but Abby is just like, oh, so you're not Alec Holland. Like, you are just this thing. And he's like, but her question is, are you happy? And he's like, yes, I am. That kind of thing. And I was like, that, because those previous issues we'd all just gone through really culminates in this point where he, like, it's not just for him, it's for her as well. Like, reconciling that, like, Alec is dead, but that's okay. you know, like kind of. I really enjoyed this whole scene, and she's like, "Well, what are you gonna do?" And he's like, "I'll just go back home. The swamp. You know, like it's fine. Like I'm good. You don't have to worry about me anymore. You know, like I'm not this guy that needs to be turned back into a human. I'm not him. He's dead. I'm this thing that's separate from him. I really like that.
And the only final note on this issue I wanted to make, back to the kind of the horror roots of this whole run. This little panel here of Woodrew's shadow entering his little science hutch is pretty scary because he just looks like kind of this goblin outline.
David, maybe you can clarify. Is that the spaceship that had crashed or whatever before, or what is that? I thought it was like Arcane's spaceship from like that.
I don't know. I think it was Woodrew's own little ship hutch.
Oh,
right?
he like brought
I don't
that
think
there?
it was Arcane.
What the fuck? It just has like a weird science pod.
Yeah, I think
honestly,
so.
I think you're right. I think it might be Woodrew's. Arcane ship or another.
I was
ship
gonna say, is it like a remnant of that ship? Okay.
I'm trying to go back in time to earlier. Yeah, I'm trying to see if earlier issues it shows it more explicitly.
I wish I'd picked up on that sooner. It might be. There was another alien issue.
No, this looks like a pretty different ship than that bug one.
It does look like a different one.
It's not the bug ship. So I wonder if it is.
I don't think it's Arcane.
But it's weird because it feels like it's been there already. Like it was like this thing that
damaged.
he inhabited.
You see it. There's like a hole in it. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, but the hole in it is from when he tapped into the green and like blew out of it as
is it?
vengeance filled. Because in the earlier issues, it's just a pod, like it's just.
Well, wait. When he's running back to it, there's like a he's running through the swamp. There's like a dead, decaying Tyrannosaurus Rex monster thing. Is that what it's from? Maybe.
No, that's an alligator, dude.
That's not an alligator.
That's just a gator, bro. It's
very,
moving.
very well drawn.
Bro, that's just a gator. Like it's moving.
That's a gigantic alligator.
It's a swamp gator, bro. Anything else to say about issue 24?
Yes, I do. The last page is amazing.
Oh, you mean that little diva pose? Wow, what a fucking diva.
Well,
Look at
also,
that.
well,
wow.
The key
What
being that
is
it brings
that
back
about?
the same color. Thank you, with the better color.
Dave,
Holy shit.
that your page looks much better.
So red in that. Oh, it's so bad. They messed it up so bad.
Well,
The colors in that are amazing.
in the old trades, they actually messed it up worse because in the old trades, they extended this up to the top. And when they did that, they deleted the text right here so that you don't get the ending to his thought.
Oh my
and meet
god.
the sun. Oh, wow.
That's even worse. I guess I'll take ruined colors over missing text and contextual.
I will say this page to me, it's very Vietnam. It's giving Miss Saigon. It's giving Platoon with the arms out. It's just very Vietnam. All of it.
It's also giving like, I don't know, Cher with the arms out.
Well,
I don't
also
know.
very
he
diva.
is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Like,
I'm
he
here.
is.
Yeah.
This is like one of the illustrative panels that I'm like, I can forgive the shitty Green Lantern and Superman drawings from 2 pages before, and like this, I'm just like, amazing. But yeah,
It's a lot of Broadway too. A lot of Sound of Music too. A lot of Sound of Music, just a lot of Broadway.
Yeah, the hills are alive. Yeah.
We do also, back to the earlier note of Swamp Thing design, this really, like in full, you can see that he's no longer just a muscular green man. He's got roots growing in and out. It's just very vegetative.
Yeah.
Looking.
He's got a healthy crop of bush.
He's got some potatoes growing. He's got an armpit potato on his right arm growing out there. So. Yeah.
I'm just saying, he's hiding a larger tuber down below.
All right. Should we talk about issue 2? I want to talk about issue 25. I want to talk about Jason Blood. What a savage bitch this man is. He will tell you when you're going to die.
Justice League is here.
Yeah.
Jason Blood arrived in town. He's some sort of Erica Slaughter, kind of, right?
No, can we go back a second?
Oh, yeah.
I figured out why the Justice League is in this issue. So this issue is cover dated May of 84, which means it probably came out in March. In July, they released Justice League Annual number 2, where they disbanded the OG Justice League and started the new one for the 80s.
Ah.
So I'm thinking this is pre-crossover of here's the classic Justice League. Look how, I mean, it's almost like maybe on purpose. Look how ineffectual they are, how they're not accomplishing anything. And then Justice League.
Let's disband this Justice League.
It's about
so not only did they probably force it down Alan Moore's throat, but they were like, also highlight this aspect of them.
Yeah.
So we can introduce this new and better team. All right, Jason Blood's wandering around town, telling everybody they're about to die.
Well, first of all,
looking for a little monster boy.
The cover of this issue is very kind of horror slasher film, right? You've got a scantily clad woman being grabbed at. It's very like slasher film.
To, Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Ah.
And they
was that what the poster was for Creature of the Black Lagoon?
That's a scene from Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh.
And I think in the issue, Abby even says that that's what they're doing.
Yeah, like stop.
Do they spoil that movie too? But yeah, as we mentioned, Jason Blood is just a savage little bitch. He'll tell you if you say, "Hey, Mister, nice to meet you," he'll say, "You're going to die today." And
yeah,
this is how.
pretty great.
I'm just realizing how insane Jason Blood's eyebrows also are compared to
they're out of control.
He's rocking some bushy brows.
Well, because later he makes the point that he and Etrigan pull from each other and take from each other, and so Etrigan is kind of seeping into the man.
Yeah, Abby literally says at the end of the issue, like, "Are you the same?" Or actually, the next issue. But she goes, "Are you the same? Oh, you and Etrigan are one and the same." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess you could say that." You know, that kind of thing. Like, but that's illustrated throughout these two issues, kind of thing.
Yeah, but later, when we'll get there, but later he has a line that talks about how, like, the demon is kind of seeping into him more, right?
Yeah.
But so you see it with his brows. You see it with the way he just tells people they're going to be impaled by a marlin fish.
This title page, again, is one of their emphasis on the title pages. I thoroughly enjoy.
I love this title pages. I love it. It's like dreamy and like a trippy kind of swamp thing.
Like Len Wein and Ben Wrightson or Bern Wrightson are like draped over in vines, like off those branches coming down. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Another cool thing. So in this first 2 pages, Blood buys a Ouija board, which is, again, Moore is such a great writer, but it comes into play later of why he's buying a Ouija board.
Yeah, he's looking for like whatever. He knows there's a demon in town, and he's looking for whatever talisman or object brought them there, you know, kind of thing. Like you get
but
to
at this point in time, we don't know.
Out.
The reader doesn't know anything about it, but it's great how it all comes back together. But first, we have Abby dipping her toes in the water and Swamp Thing just playfully grabbing at it.
He knows how to get those girls wet. No.
I'm not okay. I don't. He's a monster. I'm not really comfortable with monsters romantically involved.
He's not a monster. How dare you?
He's
heard of Beauty and the Beast?
I'm not really a fan of that construct either, to be honest.
What? Kidnapping someone and keeping them?
Do you think it's weird that Abby just has a fun time relaxing in a swamp? I mean, I know her best friend, quote unquote, and future lover is a swamp thing, but like, you just hang out on the edge of a swamp,
Joe,
laying around.
If you were married to that unemployed, useless Matt dude, who just has sex with like his blue air demons in the room, then I would go to the swamp. Also, I would get away from that.
Also, you know, it's 19.
I mean, I'm just saying she's lounging at the edge of a swamp like it's a beach or something. You know what I mean? Like she's just like hanging out while he's hanging out underwater and fucking around.
I like how their dialogue, I like how the way Moore writes Swamp Thing's dialogue is it's super stuttery and simple, you know, as if he really is a plant struggling to speak.
Yeah,
you know, he just says like I ellipsis, you know, only a habit ellipsis. I gave it up. You know, he just writes it as he's just literally is a plant, just struggling to kind of, how do I speak?
That's a big plot point in the first run, that he has trouble speaking and like even can't do it for a lot of issues, and other writers make up for that by having him have dozens of narrative captions on every page, and I think Moore makes the right decision to not lean on that crutch and just kind of let Swamp Thing be without just constantly having him think about like oh no, what can I do now that I've realized who I am, and just like that kind of 70s dialogue.
Yeah. Another quick point: how out of 5 on WikiFeet, what would you rate Abby here?
Just a 10.
A 10? Oh, a 10 out of 5.
I mean,
okay.
a 10 is 10 being like 10 is like I want to splash swamp water on them.
Okay. Well, then they're definitely a 10. But in this
I like how
conversation,
Swamp Thing's concerned that Matt didn't come to visit. He's like, Abby, Matt didn't come to visit me again. She's like, no, we're dissing.
yeah, she's like, Matt's going through shit. Yeah, just don't worry about it.
It's just a weird, quick aside. Like after they flirtatiously dunk each other in the water, like they're playing at a pool, and they're teenagers. And then he's like, "Hey, where's Matt? Why didn't he come see me?
Yeah, where's your husband?" While we're flirting.
No.
Well,
like, by the way, I know we're having a great time, but where's your husband at? That's weird.
I do want to say, in Swamp Thing's defense, I think it's safe to just confirm.
Yeah,
where's your husband?
Right?
Is this okay? Where's your husband? I think it's fine.
Nah,
he's just confirming.
He's stirring the pot. He's like, so
well,
yeah, he's
okay.
in the water.
Great,
He's trying to figure. He's feeling it out.
Do you want
He's
to
like,
talk about it?
I
can talk
Okay.
about it.
I guess it's
Oh,
true. I mean,
okay.
Patrick, what you described as arms out diva Swamp Thing thing. Where what's going on? Let's stir the pot.
You can cry on my shoulder anytime, Abby.
In this conversation, we learned that Abby has a new job, which is working at a children's shelter, and I want to talk about Paul.
Right, where some kid
I get
has summoned something.
Page
that's killing children.
6. Page 6 is.
Yeah.
It's like Twin Peaks fucking bizarre. Like, what am I reading? Who is this child? So she meets this child named. She just first day on the job, meeting the kid. It's her first day on the job, and they're like meeting the kids. She says, "Hey, Paul, I'm Abigail. Spell it." I'm sorry, what? Spell it. Spell your stupid name. And like, this kid is like unhinged, and I love Abby's reactions. If she goes. So Paul says, Abigail, spell it. And she goes, I'm sorry, what? And he goes like, spell it. Okay.
Wait, you're missing a very
Paul
point.
literally
Paul
says
speaks in the third person.
He speaks in the third. He says, Paul needs you to spell Abigail for him. This is what Paul tells her. And she goes, well, it's spelled Abigail. Is that okay? Is that okay? It's just unreal.
So
I love that.
I figured out why he does that.
We know why he does it, because the Ouija board.
I just figured it out.
Well, yeah.
I just figured that out.
This reread is when I realized that he hears his parents spell out the name of the demon, and the demon is Kamora, and his mom says, did we just misspell camera? And so he's got it in his mind that misspelling a word leads to a monster appearing.
Well, right. It's based to the Ouija summit.
Also, Al's just trying to mock a mentally ill child. It's fine.
Well, I know, but
he's not mentally ill. He's traumatized.
Sure,
he's mentally fine.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's not mentally fine. I mean, that hard reprogrammed his brain a little bit. I think he's in good hands. He's in good hands.
Whatever. I do
like. Don't whatever that. Just continue to mock the mentally ill child. It's fine.
I'm going to continue because the next thing he says after she spells her name, and that's
he's traumatized, Al.
Then he says, "Paul doesn't like you, Abigail, because you're too witchy." And then I have to go. I love this. I have to go now. I'm in a group. And then look at how he walked. Look at how this doofus walks.
I know the way he walks.
Look at him walk off like that.
God.
And again, readers, I cannot stress enough, listeners, this is one page.
Yeah, it's a full
This
page.
is one page of this child.
Full page info dump on this guy.
And this is my favorite. This is where I the first time I read this, I dropped this comic laughing. Abby's response to all of this is just, wow.
Wow.
She just says, wow. As he saunters off like this little doofus, she goes, wow, right, at meeting Paul. And then the caseworker who's there just says, oh, that was Paul. He's only been here a few months. Let's go to my office. Like, what?
Yeah,
that's all the explanation we get? Like, this kid is...
Yeah, here's your intro.
Unhinged.
I
Listen,
mean, I gotta
he's something
say,
is killing the children to his family, and she's trying to figure
And
it out.
then I'm sorry, I cannot stop talking about this. The caseworker says, come to my office, I'll show you some of his work, quote unquote, it's interesting. And it's all drawings of people being dismembered.
That's
The
fine.
interesting work.
That's fine.
The interesting, it's just, I lost it reading this because again, later.
It's so funny how focused you are on this. I was more focused on Jason Blood just wandering around town telling people.
Well, that's also look. Blood is he's my number one demon queen. We're gonna get to him, but I just and more later reveals. All of this Paul's behavior later makes sense, but just at first blush reading this, I was like, what is happening? What is this interesting art? Who is this child? Unreal. And the whole time, all of this madness, Abby's reaction is just like, wow, okay. Wow.
Al, none of this
Well, I
matters
gotta say,
because
though-
summer you're going to be in jail for manslaughter, and it's because Selena doesn't like the lawn chairs.
Yeah.
Good
the
day.
way they drew the way they drew his silhouette walking away, like I think I skimmed over that because looking at it now, like that was a choice. Like,
Look
what were
at
they
that.
going
Look at how
for
this
there?
little doofus is walking. That's
What is this?
unreal.
What is happening?
Are his arms just flailing around?
Who
What is
walks
going
like
on?
that? Who walks
By the way,
like that?
This kind of comes back to what I was saying about the overall art when I was like, I love like the title pages and the double page spreads of Swamp Thing in the swamp. Like I love all the vegetation. I love how Swamp Thing looks. The actual human beings in this book, not so good.
But I just one last point. My favorite moment in this whole comic. Look at Abby's reaction and just wow.
Yeah, that's it. Just
Wow. That's it to Paul.
Anyway,
Okay.
Matt's a piece of shit.
And Abigail has seen some shit too, and she's still like, wow.
Oh, and she continues to see shit. Yeah, she continues.
Dude, Matt is fucked up. He makes her clothes dance around the room and then get down on her knees to quote unquote apologize. That's
Yes.
what's going on?
But yes.
Come on. Are you kidding?
That does happen. Matt does make her.
She's like, fuck you, I'll see you later. I'm going to Baton Rouge. and then he's like, and then he's just sweating and he's like, stand up. and then her clothes dance up into the air and he's like,
well,
no,
also,
get
get down on your knees and
Like,
apologize. I do, going back to the horror aesthetic,
Yeah.
Matt in the window, very horror, all just very,
Yeah, just fucking all of
very
it.
horror.
Anyway, Abby
we skipped over, and this is the point where Jason Blood tells a guy you're going to be in jail for manslaughter, which connects to the other death he prescribed earlier in the issue.
Mhm.
Another comment about Baton Rouge, a little Confederacy there.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. There it
A little
is.
Confederacy there.
Yeah, and then we specifically see him buy the Ouija board that Paul's parents used.
Yes. Yeah. And again, at this point in time, we don't know yet. Like, this is Alan Moore reveals it later, but right now we're just kind of, it's not clear how everything connects. But now we do get a flashback of Paul. And first of all, this demon, like, genuinely scared. It's horrifying
Oh, the little
that this
monkey?
Ouija board summons this creepy monkey demon who slaughters people and then hangs around. Like, I found this whole arc actually scary.
It's very.
It was
Al,
really
you know what this
creepy.
demonstrates to me? That if you were this character, if you were Paul in the middle of this, like you wouldn't have been able to defeat your demon at the end of this. You would just succumb to the
What are you talking about? I'm an alpha, dude.
You're scared of that little monkey demon? Come on.
No,
I'm
I
terrified of it. Look at the fucking
I thought
monkey's
the
face.
horror was done really. Yeah, I thought the horror was done really well. I thought this whole thing was creepy.
It eats
the
his
fact
friend.
that it-
No big deal. It's licking his face later. It's his friend.
No, that part's really well. Also,
He's
the
the
way
boss.
the way the demon uses Paul like as kind of a succubus to grip onto
it's
to
gross.
kill around him was really creepy. I thought Moore did really a good job of just writing the horror in this arc. I thought was really well done because I thought it
the
was
fact
just
that-
super creepy.
The fact the monkey demon can take its teeth and point them out horizontally The way he
Yeah.
attacks
Yeah.
Paul's dad is fucking horrifying.
Yeah, horrifying.
Terrible.
Well, the mom's already murdered and on the ground, and then it's like, and you're like, oh shit, okay. He screams. And Paul's like,
but the way they so basically the origin of this is Paul's parents had this haunted Ouija board, and they spelled out was it Ombox Hodale Kamar? Actually, I don't want to say it out loud because I don't know if that's something.
guys, it was all Paul. It was just Paul.
But they spell out the demon summoning words, which I already repeated once. I don't want to do it again because I think 3 times maybe is what
Yeah,
summons it
Beetlejuice
here.
makes
I
it
don't want
happen.
it. But then, so they summon this creature, and then just straight up from under the table, it just shoots out and straight up murders his parents. It's horrifying. And then and these images of Paul hiding in his room and the creature going up the steps, it's just, I found all of this genuinely creepy.
How do you guys
Well,
like the double page spread of Swamp Thing kind of like meditating and like feeling what's going on? Like he basically relives Alec Holland's death rather than his own, but like he relives his death, and then he just wakes up from that and goes, I know what this is. It's fear, and like because he knows something's wrong. And I just love that little. It's 1617. I love that like 2-page spread of him just going like, what the fuck? You know, like he's just sitting there being Swamp Thing and zenning out in the fucking swamp, and he's. Just
But he
like,
can sense, bro. But he can sense the imbalance that the demon is bringing.
Yeah, but the external nature of like what's going on around him is influencing his thoughts, and I don't know. I like
It's an amazing spread.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, again, going back art wise, like that spread is spectacular. And then a lot of the human pages, I'm like, that's all right.
That was specifically the one I mentioned earlier that I was like blown away by the color difference.
Yes, the reds and greens playing off each other are really strong in that page. Just really good. Just art wise, that 2-page spread is fantastic. It makes the whole book.
Yeah, and I do just kind of like the idea that he's so kind of in tune with the environment that he can just sense that there's a demonic presence, something's wrong. As this is going on, Blood puts on a long priest-like robe because why not? He does some Ouija. And we get the kind of the prophecy of the swordfish death actually happening. And I love when he runs into Abby and she says, oh, well, who the hell? Because he's kind of following her, and she goes, who the hell are you? And he just maniacally laughs. He goes, oh, who the hell? My name is Blood, Jason Blood. What a drama. I mean, what a little
he is very
dramatic
theatrical.
girl he is. Yeah.
Yeah, and this page 21, is unfortunately why this is the second most expensive individual issue of this run.
Really?
And it's because of that motherfucker right there.
Oh, are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, because it's Sting or something?
Are you kidding me?
So
it's
this
Sting.
was so spoiler alert, in issue 37 we meet John Constantine the Hellblazer. Hellblazer was created as a backup character in this run of Swamp Thing. That's the most expensive issue of this run.
Yeah.
This one was Steve Bissette and John Totleben doing a face study of Sting to see if they could pull off Constantine later on. And so that one page, that's not Constantine. But because they modeled that face after Sting in practice,
so it's Sting, and then
unofficial cameo of Constantine.
It's unofficially John Constantine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting. John Constantine's first appearance, right? Unofficially.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you say that because, like, when I was reading this, that face stood out so much, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I thought it was weird, and then, but like, because it never came back up, I was like, "All right, well, whatever," you know, and I just moved on. But like, it is very distinct within that panel.
Yeah.
Enough for me not even knowing nothing about that, but like it still stood out to me, so that's interesting.
Yeah, and the next page we already hinted at this, but we see Paul in his room, and the monkey.
Yeah, the little monkey comes back to haunt him
and licks. I mean, but this is horrifying. Like it licks him and then goes hunting for other children in the night. I mean, it's terrifying. Look at its look at that close up of like it licking its lips. That's horrifying.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Also,
All
the
right,
monkey's
on-
tongue is like a dragon's tongue or like like a snake's. Like it's a really long tentacle. Like it's not what you would expect come out of a monkey's mouth.
No.
You've never been licked by a monkey, Patrick? They all have tongues.
Well, I
in
was-
them.
No,
I
I
also-
was just thinking that. I was like, what do monkeys' tongues look like? I'm pretty sure that's not right though.
Issue 26, basically, I mean, it opens with Abby and Swamp Thing running towards the school for gifted youngsters.
Can you get a couple of notes in first?
Sure, yes.
So all throughout 25, we see references to Goya's Aquatint, A Sueño de la Razón Produce
Well,
Monstruos.
Yeah, here at the very end,
It's also the title. It's in page 2. It's in the page where Jason does the ritual. And yeah, it's the sleep of reason produces monsters. And I think what he's drawing on there is that the parents fucked around with a Ouija board, not understanding what it was. Like they abandoned reason for the sake of this game, and now it's led to producing a monster. But I actually think later on, Etrigan will dispute that in issue 27 as to whether or not that's true. But that seems to be the idea that's being presented here. The other thing is that the Kamara demon is a super deep cut. This is from The Demon issue 4 by Jack Kirby, the series that he created Etrigan in. And I don't think anybody before or since has brought this monster back. And
Probably not.
yeah, and so this is, I mean, we see it at the end of 27 that this whole 3 issues is Alan Moore doing a tribute to Jack Kirby. And so he's pulling this monster from the Demon comic. And I think it's a lot better in this. Like the Demon comic has a lot of issues in that it's trying to be horror, but Jack Kirby really can't think that way. He can only think in the very bombastic kind of New Gods, like Fantastic Four mode. And so it just becomes another action series. And I think Alan Moore really finds the horror in the Kamara, but also in Etrigan. Like I think this is the best depiction of Etrigan as we get in the next 2 issues.
Oh, I loved Etrigan. So another thing, before kind of researching for this, I didn't know Etrigan was a Jack Kirby creation. That actually surprised me. I never knew that about Etrigan.
So in the early 70s, they loosened some of the restrictions on the comics code, and superheroes were starting to go on a downturn, like as we moved into the Bronze Age. And so everybody was thinking like, maybe we should try horror comics again, because horror comics overtook superheroes in the 50s, which is what led to the code. And so that's how House of Secrets became big again. And I think Marvel had like Tomb of Dracula or comics like that.
Yeah.
And Kirby was working on the New God stuff, and it was not selling well. And the editors came to him and said, can you pitch us a horror comic? And he pitched Etrigan. And they said, well, we love that. You're going to start working on it immediately. And he said, well, I'd really like to work on New Gods. Can I hand this to somebody else? And the editor said, well, here, I'll fix that problem for you. All New Gods is canceled. You're doing the Demon. And so Kirby did the Demon for 16 issues. And then I think that's when he left DC to go back to Marvel. But yeah, so this comes out of that same time period that the original Swamp Thing was created, when horror was becoming like popular again in the early 70s.
All right. Issue 26. Are we ready to go on?
Yeah.
Saga of the Swamp Thing, issue 26.
Well,
Abby and Blood
kind of
have a little back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, Blood just like savages Abby again.
Oh yeah, big time. It was fantastic.
When he goes, your self-pity interests me not even slightly. It is the children who are in danger. Watch over them, woman. Try to save as many as you can. For you know less than they of madness, and less than I of evil. Good day. Just savage. Just slander down.
It's also like her self-pity. It was such a great line. But at the same time, I'm like, this woman's been through some terrifying shit like the last couple weeks.
Jason Blood's an asshole. I mean, he's an asshole. Yeah, like he's a complete asshole.
Like he's like, fuck your mental health.
Also, he destroys her like we just described in what looks like just a drinking tea at a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
Where does this happen? It's just in public at a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I definitely picked up on a bit of a metatextual bit here where, because Abby's complaint is that why does all of these horrible things keep happening to me? And Jason Blood says, it's in your blood because she's an arcane, but he's also getting it like, you're in a horror comic. This is what happens to you. Like, you just have to make peace with, this is the genre you are in, and you have to either deal with it or you're probably going to die. And like, she's not even ready to kind of have that conversation. And it also reminds us of her connection to Anton Arcane, which we'll get another, pick up on later on.
Yeah. But then she and Swamp Thing rush to because at this point, even Swamp Thing is aware of what's going on at the I don't know what the term is, the house for troubled people, wherever Paul is.
Oh yeah, and the
shelter.
title for this issue is A Time of Running, and there's a quote in the first page showing where that comes from, but that quote is from the script of Night of the Hunter. That line was cut from the movie. So I don't know how Alan Moore got the script for Night of the Hunter in 1984 to make that reference.
No idea. I don't know. Yeah. Night of the Hunter was that James Mitchum who was in that was a famous. Yes. I think it was Mitchum, right? Yeah, that was a classic film. I won't spoil that film here though. I'm not in the business of spoiling films. So I love their book. Well, so they get to the shelter and are immediately confronted with a naked man.
Is it a shelter?
Well,
is it an insane asylum?
It's Elysium Lawns. It's heaven. And what should be
Xavier's School for Monster Making Children?
Something like that. But they're immediately greeted by a naked man who attacks them.
Wait, I want to hear what Dave had to say. It's heaven?
Elysium Lawns.
Elysium Lawns is
that's what it's called.
But Elysium is the Greek heaven.
But it's just by the way, in the end, when Swamp Thing brings him back to the school and there's like a sign, it just says Elysium Lawns, but it says residential school. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean?
Well, first of all, Dave, I have a question for you. Is Elysium heaven? Because in the Odyssey, Achilles himself admits that it's better to be a slave in the real world than a king in Elysium.
Well, maybe you're right.
So what sort of heaven is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, naked boy tackles Abby.
And then they just come in and then they're just like, "Hey, Vince, stop it!" And they just grip him off of him and say, "Hey, sorry, Abby.
Hey, knock it off. Don't pay attention to the naked boy." Yeah, sorry.
There's so much insanity happening. I'm just saying, it's like she walks in. This is her new job.
That is
the second day in the job.
Shit.
Madness.
They roll him up in a mattress.
I do think this is probably based on real, like, firsthand knowledge. In the previous issue, in the letters column, Karen Berger is now the editor. She takes over as editor in the last issue, and she introduces herself, and she has all of the. She has Alan Moore, Steve Bissette, and John Totleben do like bios of themselves. Alan Moore's is very boring, but he does say that when he gets older, he's going to look like the evil twin of Father Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, you kind of did nail that one.
he pretty much did grow into that.
And but Steve Bissette says that his wife works at a center like this, and that she supplied a lot of the background information for what happens in a facility like that.
So monkey demons regularly get summoned.
Look, when the kids go crazy and they can't control them, they wrap them up in mattresses, and sometimes they might run out of mattresses. If they're all going crazy.
They ran out of mats. Yeah, like what?
Well, that part does sound like probably something that happened. Of just wrap him up in a mat. This guy's
they're going fucking crazy. They don't
control.
pump them full of drugs, so it's like stop them from hurting others and hurting themselves. It makes sense, but it's also just that's horrifying.
So then
this is where the mental health industry was in 1984.
It's much better now.
Oh yeah, way better.
But one thing, so Abby puts on her detective cap and notices that the other children are drawing scary monkeys.
The kids are drawing all the same scary monkey.
So Abby starts thinking, what's going on here? Because it's not just Paul. And then, and Paul, Jesus Christ, this child. he greets her with, "Oh, Abigail, hello, Abigail. You know you'll die pretty soon." Like, I know Jason Blood does it, but it's okay when Jason Blood does it. It's less okay when Paul does it. Jason Blood is a more kind of debonair, confident way of saying that. But Paul, Paul mentions that Paul talks about the Monkey King, but no one believes him. But Abby believes him. Abby sure does.
What do you think about the little Matt interludes here?
I like them because I just like in this issue. Well, let me say this issue and the following, we basically get a mishmash of all sorts of demons. Because the Monkey Demon is scary, Etrigan is scary, Matt is scary, and if you look at the way they're all drawn, their faces all kind of like take on this demonic, angry expression. So I sort of like the way they're kind of equating Matt's issues with the other kind of demonic presences going along.
Yeah.
As if it's all just kind of this darkness descending.
Yeah, he's
this
kind of
general darkness descending
shit,
on town.
Right? Yeah. And even so, I'm in the next issue, but Etrigan even hints at that. He's like, "Whoa, whose hand was shoving their hands in the direction when they were doing the Ouija board thing?" So like kind of like it all alludes to like there's another force, like influencing what's going on here.
Yeah, and just that there's this general sense of like the environment is sliding into this demonic, like it's tilting towards all these demonic presences.
Just like when Abby's like, "Fuck you, I'm gonna walk," and then she slaps his keys, and then he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna get drunk and look at demon ladies,
and we
maybe
see
make your clothes, give me a blowjob."
So I want to get to Etrigan's Dark Knight Returns entrance in a second because it's incredible.
Well, before that, I want to talk about the fears that we see from the children.
Yeah, because so the monkey is feeding off these children's fears, and he's
so it
kind
appears
of like
as whatever fear that they have.
Yeah, he's kind of like it who can take on the shape of your fears. Yeah. So one of them is like a cancer tumor, which is interesting.
I had a note here. So like Roberta sees the blue hand of
oh god, that was the worst one, and there's worse by measure, but that one for me was like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
No, the worst for me was like the one who was viewing, what was it? Like her father is coming to rape her, basically.
Oh, Mommy Needn't Know? You mean that one?
Mommy Needn't Know. Yeah,
that one's fucked up.
I couldn't
that one was horrifying to me because
I couldn't tell for sure if that was the father or like another male relative, but yeah, I mean the intent behind it is.
I mean,
yeah, either way, it's horrifying. It's sexual assault by
clearly.
That part was terrible. What was the one you were talking about,
like
Dave?
Nature of it. It's this Roberta's room. Something small and cold clambers across the counterpane.
17 in the middle.
Yeah, there's a sound polyethylene going in and out very fast. I don't know.
Because like Roberta accidentally.
I see
it says earlier in the issue. Earlier in the issue, it says Roberta accidentally smothered her baby,
smothered her little brother or something. Yeah,
with a plastic bag.
Yeah, I've got it right here. Yeah, that's horrifying. Yeah.
There's a sound polyethylene going in and out. Fuck you, Alan Moore. Like, could you make that more horrifyingly accurate? Like, god damn, dude. And the hands blue. Like, just oh fuck. That one's horrific. Fucked up as shit, but like obviously getting abused by an older male relative is also fucked up as shit. But like, man,
the abuse or sexual harassment one was scary.
Yeah, there's some dark shit in just those few panels that are like, it's very, I mean, it's strongly alluded to, but it's not necessarily spelled out. But like, man, it's goddamn. That's the kind of panel I might have read in 1984 and been like, oh, okay. Dark, crazy shit's happening. And then I'd read it like 10 years later and be like, oh my God, like kind of thing, it's the kind of thing as a reader you might lose if you're younger. And then you read later and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is some fucked up shit. Well, these kids have gone through some trauma.
Yeah. And so I just want to get to, I love Etrigan. Let's
Not a Hope in Hell.
Yeah. Page 19 is like the best drawing of Etrigan ever. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love how,
just that one now that you're pointing to, that one, the cape swirls around in such a specific manner that I like. It's beautiful, and it's
Well,
just, it's a tiny vertical panel on a giant full page spread of multiple panels.
I like the way they draw Etrigan's face, especially in the next issue, is very similar to how they draw the monkey demon's face, and with the red eyes. And I just like the way they're really drawing attention to the fact that Etrigan is a demon. Like, this is a demonic presence. But I love, obviously he comes in as all the children are being haunted. He's rhyming. He's just on the rooftop covered by bats rhyming. Then I love, this part where he's just the silhouette of him ripping. Yeah. Patrick, this image to me is very Devilman Crybaby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, look how his cape is flaring out like wings.
Like it's just like demon wings, and he's ripping that off. And upon your necks, the breath of Etrigan. And he does his little Dark Knight Returns leap. Yeah.
Apologies for the people not watching on this on YouTube. But Dave, could you hold that page up again?
Yeah.
With the cape swirling around? Like the oversaturation on my digital copy that you can see in the panels that I put over here, and like
mine's the same. That's the same page.
That's subtle. Yeah, I know, but the coloring on that page though is what I'm getting at. Like the pink, it's almost pink. Like it's not red. You know what I mean? And like, I just love that kind of subtlety in terms of coloring sometimes, and like why they felt the need to be like, let's ramp this up to fucking bright ass red, like for the digital copy and maybe whatever copies that came, maybe the collected volumes, who knows? But like specifically in the digital copies that I'm reading, it's super bright fucking saturated red, and like Dave's copy is like this subtle pink that's not so over the top, and like, man, you lose something if you don't have the original issues. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying.
I mean, it's because again, like the colors were not made with the expectation that you would see them with a bright backlight.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
They were
it's not even the bright backlight. They've clearly redone them in a way that's like not true to the original.
Yeah,
they could have kept that and still made it digital.
Balance. Like, since newsprint is not all the way white, it doesn't reproduce the saturated colors. Like when they do the reproductions, they key for the white being bright white, and so that ends up oversaturating all the other colors, when the intention was that the kind of off-white of the pages would desaturate that intentionally. So yeah, I mean, it's the only good reproduction that I've seen is actually the recent Absolute edition of Len Wein's and Bruni Wrightson's Swamp Thing. Of like the first 10 issues. They just did a great Absolute of that, where they got I forget his name, but they got like a professional colorist in the field, and like he did a whole Facebook post about how like I wanted to capture the intended colors. Like I went through and I adjusted every color to match what the printed page would have looked like, so you can get that experience and not just said, okay, this is red, so I'm just going to make it red. And I wish they would do that. That's the
thing. I feel some digital comics, and if it's more based on a more modern comic, it translates to digital because it was probably done digitally. Yeah. So like you read it digitally, it makes sense. But like some of these older comics like this just doesn't. It loses something. It doesn't translate properly to like what their original intention was. Not only like, I don't know. It's just that's something that I was lamenting in the last episode we did. But I reiterate again, like that I've been flipping through my book the whole time, going like, I wonder what that really looked like, the kind of thing, Anyway,
right. Well, just to wrap this up, so I just want to talk about Etrigan's entrance again, because they're all the other actors on stage are all inside the building, and from their point of view, the skylight just gets ripped off the ceiling. Yeah. And this giant demon says, "Feast, Jack and Ape, eat hearty while you can. Upon your necks, the breath of Etrigan." And he just leaps in. And everybody's amazing. Shocked, and he just jumps in. Love that entrance.
Side note, in the meantime, Matt smashes into a tree. Moving on.
Drunk driving. Yeah, he drives drunk and smashes into a tree.
We'll get to Matt bleeding to death in a car in the next issue. But, it happens in this one.
Well, I guess that's how Arcane gets his grip on him, because it's an arcane bug.
Oh,
Gets
Well,
to him.
so yeah. Well, reading it this time, I really tried to parse like what Etrigan is saying here, and I think it's interesting, especially how he kind of realizes he's wrong in the next issue, because in this speech, what he's saying is like, if you sin at all, you are an agent of the devil, whether you intend to be or not. Like he mentions the caretakers, and it's like, yeah, you take care of kids, but also you're both unfaithful to each other. Like you are of the devil's party, whether you know it or not. And then he has a great line that, like, innocence, why to hear the tales they tell, you'd think there was no guilty child in hell. That, like, for him, it's very black and white. Like if you are a sinner or somebody who has committed some kind of horrible offense, like that's just on you. And
I mean, he says, I pay no heed to youth or purity. I'll roast each fool that aids the beast's escape. Yeah, it's all just based, should innocence be mollycoddled thus? I fail to see the reason for the fuss. Yeah, he's very much just a black and white going for it.
I'm just noticing now that he's a little bit like Nicki Minaj, that he'll kind of just mispronounce words to make them rhyme. Because in that quote that Al was just talking about, he goes, I am the one who comes to cage the ape. I pay no heed to youth or purity. I'll roast each fool that aids the beast's escape and drink their health tonight in purgatory.
Purgatory.
Doesn't say
Purgatory.
purgatory.
It rhymes with purity, purgatory.
Yeah, not purgatory, doesn't it? So he's like purgatory.
Yeah.
I just thought that was purgatory.
Patrick, he's doing all of this off the cuff, and he's about to fight evil.
I know.
It's difficult. It's difficult. All right.
Listen, I'm just going to get loaded and get in my car right now.
Well, that's Matt's. Yeah, that's while Etrigan is rhyming.
And just see if I can figure it out on the way.
Look at how where is that? Look at how he's drinking. Look at that.
Yeah, he's
just guzzling.
He's going for it.
I mean, do you think that's how I drink during these podcasts?
Yeah,
I'm not driving.
Just guzzling it down. Yeah.
All right. So Swamp issue 27. Let's get right to it. Saga the Swamp Thing.
Last thing on the last page. So the captions say, "The night can make a man more brave, but not more sober." These words are repeated to Matthew the Raven in Sandman 71 as a further confirmation that that's who he is.
Okay.
Damn.
Because they're all
I love
drinking,
that deep cut shit, Dave.
They're all drinking to the wake of Sandman. Spoiler alert. And they like offer it to Matthew the Raven, and he's like, "No, I gave it up." And then Lucian quotes that line to him, and that kind of.
Very interesting.
Very cool.
I think this is a weird ass black joke on Alan Moore's part that I think I've run this down, but it's so crazy. So I was really confused by why the last panel has such a big thing for Burma shave. And I was like, Alan Moore writes scripts that are 4 times longer than the comics. He had to write that in the script. Like that's not it's not a mistake. And then Burma shave was this like foamless shaving cream from like the 30s and 40s that had these roadside signs that all had little rhyming couplets to them to like remind you to use Burma shave. Like a shave that's real, no cuts to heal, a soothing velvet afterfeel, Burma shave. And I feel like he's making a joke here with that because the captions are also in verse. Like the line is, "The night can make a man more brave, but not more sober, Burma shave."
Burma shave.
And I was just like, holy shit. Like,
that's fantastic. Oh my god.
Talk about bringing outward influence in the comics.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's the.
It's
Burma
also
shave
probably a
added.
play on the fact that Etrigan rhymes. Just on
and
a
maybe that
simpler
too,
level.
right?
Yeah.
Because also like we have been directly drawing connection between Matt as Abby's demon, essentially.
Also, the way those are spaced along the page, it's like you read it in a diagonal order. I mean, it's like the sign is like right below the last panel or the word bubble. I guess.
Right. And we already talked about how basically Matt, Matt, Etrigan, and the monkey are all demon. They're all, there's all sorts of different demons in this town. All right, issue 27.
Let's bring it home.
So Etrigan arrives, and it just gets messy. He just starts clawing at this
Yeah,
thing,
Etrigan goes
and
straight for the demon, man.
He goes straight for the demon. It gets messy.
He's not wasting any time.
No, he's not. He's like, this is who I'm here to fight, you know, kind of thing. And I think it's interesting because Abby, while the fight is happening, she realizes that the monkey demon is like holding on to Paul. And then the second it kind of lets go, she's like, I'm going to pick Paul up and like go, you know, like she's like, I realize that I need to take this kid out of here. You know, he's clearly connected to this in some way, but I don't know what the fuck that is. But maybe separating them will help, you know, kind of thing. And the demon, or the monkey demon, fighting Etrigan kind of makes not short work of him, but like immediately kind of like gets the upper hand.
I love how
Swamp
he just
Thing kind of like takes a
Etrigan
beat
into the ground.
Yeah, it's so the monkey demon kind of like fighting Etrigan, like Etrigan's tearing him apart, but at the same time, the monkey demon just slams him to the ground. I think like Swamp Thing kind of looks at that and goes, "Yeah, go." You know, like you can kind of see his thought process. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. That needs to happen. Abby, you get out of here." And he starts. That's when he actually interjects and starts fighting the monkey demon. You know, kind of.
Well, I like how he just. I gotta say, this is why I love Swamp Thing. He's just got calm energy. Like Abby,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was just calmly sitting there watching the fight, and then as soon as Abby was like pulling Paul out of the situation, he was like, "Okay, so yeah, now I need to step in." So that's
Swamp
what he
Thing he has a really badass line when Abby says, "What about you? There's 2 monsters in there," and he just says, "There's 3 monsters," which is a badass line. Fantastic, Swamp Thing.
And then that line also, again, like shows his character change over these issues where he's at home just saying, "Yeah, I'm a monster. I'm part of this milieu. I'm not like a human anymore. Like I can handle myself. You need to get out of here."
And then we get more, drunk driving Matt talking to a bug.
Matt talks to a bug. I do like that the bug is like, feel free to scream if you want to. There's no one to hear it, and I'll still be here when you're finished. He's just like, get out of your system, guy.
And also that he does. Like he does go like, oh, and then later when you cut back to them, he's like, all right, now that you're calm.
You good?
Yeah. The bug is also, sort of like Swamp Thing. The bug is also just pretty chill, like
just chill. Just
whenever you're ready.
Sell me your soul, bro. I'll wait.
Yeah. But so Abby takes Paul and runs to the swamp because, as we know, Swamp Thing told her to go run and hide there. And these are the pages that I was referencing earlier, where Etrigan's face looks kind of like the monkey demon's face. You know?
Yeah.
And you can see how Paul, from Paul's perspective, like Etrigan is also just deeply horrifying, because this is also just a demon coming at him and threatening and attacking him, and he looks like the monkey demon. It's very
well. So also in this moment,
scary.
Etrigan's going after Paul because he's like, well, if I murder Paul, this connection to the demon will end.
Because he's going to go for the connection.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just going to murder this kid, because in his mind, he's like, this is just as wrong. This kid being connected to the demon is just as wrong as the actual demon I'm fighting.
Yeah,
which I think is interesting. But Swamp Thing is, of course, is like, no, fuck off. I'm going to save this kid too, And so then they start fighting.
I love page 11 where Etrigan. So Etrigan claws off Swamp Thing's arm. He just nonchalantly reattaches it and punches Etrigan in the face
right
with
in the
it.
face.
Yeah, I just thought that was great.
Not even with the arm that was fully attached. He's like, no, I'm going to put this on, slowly reattach it, then slam you in the face with it.
And then boom, just re-punches him. It was great.
In the meantime, we get the demon, the man, I keep saying the demon. That's so confusing. The monkey demon is now.
Well, don't say its name. Yeah, just don't say its actual
name. I didn't say its name
because that will summon.
That'd be insane, Al. But the monkey demon hunts down Abby and Paul and then starts attacking them, and immediately Abby's nightmare is Matt. So that's obvious.
Yeah, can't really ignore that one.
I do. So the bug talking to Matt, I love the part where he wants to basically enter Matt. So he's like, open your mouth as far as it'll go. And then he goes, yes, that's just right. Now this next bit will be the worst. And just jumps right in. I love that. Yeah.
Patty, to your point, like Matt being her fear, and
Well,
you're
he's
like,
literally
yeah,
her
that's
demon.
obvious.
Yeah, he's
Yeah, that's
literally her
obvious. But
demon,
like
yeah.
that's kind of a point that we've touched upon it, but like she's been seeing Matt like transforming or like conjuring demons and shit. She opens a door and Matt's like drunk and fucking like weird demons are crawling all over him, and she just closes the door and is like, everything's okay, you know, like she walks away and you're like, what the fuck, Abby? You're in an abusive relationship. Get the fuck out of there.
Definitely she is. But another thing I love, because again, back to the other run, you know, as we discussed in the other episode, Swamp Thing didn't beat Woodrue to death to defeat him or anything. And in this run as well, neither Etrigan nor Swamp Thing defeat the demon. Paul defeats the demon because Paul, as Abby is about to be overtaken by the demonic vision of Matt, you know, seeing Abby need help gives Paul the drive and courage he needs to overcome his fear. And it's him shouting at the demon, I'm not afraid of you. You're not my mom. You're not these images haunting me. You're just pretending, and I'm not afraid of you. And that's what defeats the demon. And I love how Moore in all these arcs just doesn't resolve conflict with just punching it to, you know, it's not Jack Reacher using his bigness to just punch problems. He solves them, you know, more kind of laterally. So I like that it's Paul overcoming his own fear that defeats the demon. You know, it's not Etrigan and it's not Swamp Thing. I thought that was cool. You know, rather than just maybe like if Swamp Thing and Etrigan had worked together and just started beating the demon to death.
Yeah.
Was it. You know, I think it's more interesting that Paul overcomes it. You know, just wanted to make that comment. That's a great way to end it.
And again, it goes to the idea of the horror genre where it's you have to face the things that are like chasing you. You have to like kind of come to terms with that. Like Paul having to come to terms with the fear of what happened to his parents and what's happened to the school. Like it's the like the horror climax is overcoming an inward struggle, not like punching something to death. And, and that definitely carries on as this run continues past where we're going to stop. That like that's definitely a hallmark of more storytelling in this series is Swamp Thing can fight, but fighting is not how he solves problems. And usually fighting just kind of escalates things to a more dangerous situation.
Right. And also, you know, to just kind of re-say your point, Dave, if Swamp Thing and or Etrigan had just defeated the demon and said, Paul, hey, you're safe now, everything's great. That, you know, that's a superhero comic. That's not a horror story, right? A horror story is the demon represents this externalized psychological trauma, and having someone else just beat it to death isn't you overcoming it and, you know, and kind of achieving psychological balance or healing from the trauma. But the way Paul, you know, faces his fear does do that. Much like Paul Atreides in Dune, who, you know, puts his hand in the box, the Bene Gesserit box, facing his fear, because fear is the mind killer, and you must let it pass through you. So lots of, you know, Pauls are good at facing fear. I got to say that about Pauls. They're good at facing their fears.
Yeah.
They're good at facing their fears. But so his facing the fear makes the demon tiny, and Etrigan just pops it in his mouth.
Yeah.
And eats it.
That's the end of that.
Fear, no matter how small
is he physically taking it back to hell by doing that?
I think
by
so.
ingesting
I think
it.
so, yeah.
Yeah, like so, like when he's like reformed with Jason Blood, is it like, well, that's it, and that's a way of transfer. He could have just held it in his hand, but he's like, fuck with it a little bit,
and
just,
Patrick,
I'll shit him out later in hell.
Patrick, here's a non-Nicki Minaj real rhyme for you. Fear, no matter how small it has grown, retains a certain flavor of its own.
Very good, yeah.
I don't know. It's a little weak.
Oh, I actually just thought about that. That this particular motif gets picked up again in a later issue, where about how like consuming somebody just for the sake of like punishing them or harming them is like a thing that demons like to do. And so we kind of get a taste of it here that like, yeah, that Etrigan, like, I mean, yeah, he's probably just taking him back to hell, but he wants to make this thing suffer and enjoy it while he's doing it.
I also, another aesthetic note about Etrigan, back to the other issue, when he's kind of on that steeple looking roof and there's bats around him. And then in issue 27, you know, he's very vampire coded sort of. It looks kind of like Nosferatu, Dracula, you know, this pose here. It's all very kind of vampire coded too, a lot of his.
Yeah, he's kind of giving Abby a hint of like what's to come in the book in the future. Like he's going like, "Hey, by the way, that's the kind of note that I was picking up on earlier." But it was like he was like, "Hey, who was pushing their hands on the Ouija board?" You know, kind of thing. Like, what brought this demon around? There's something else at play. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Nothing." And then swirls his cloak away and runs away. Again, it's just classic storytelling of leading into the next story or leading to things down the road. But really, really good moment with them. And she even chases Jason's blood down after the transformation and is like, "Hey, what the fuck was that?" And he's like, "I don't know, but if he was warning you, which is insane, you need to pay attention because that's crazy. Like he doesn't do that, you know, kind of thing. We might be the same person, but you know, him saying something means something, you know, kind of thing." And I really like that.
I mean, he also makes a point that, you know, he and Etrigan kind of take from each other, but he says that Etrigan hasn't changed, but I have. So he kind of hints that he's kind of losing to the demon.
Yeah, like he says, I have grown more like Etrigan, and he has grown more like Etrigan.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been a Jason Blood kind of thing. Like he's always losing. I mean, but is this the birth of that? I don't know. Like that's just been a Jason Blood like thing to me. You know, like that's the
I think it is.
motif.
I think this is the first time that idea is brought up because that is not
interesting
a plot point in Jack Kirby's The Demon.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I've read a little bit of the Jack Kirby Demon stuff, so like that. My main takeaway is that they're just. It's a struggle. It's the Hulk versus Bruce Banner. It's the, you know, like, am I him or is he me? You know, that kind of thing. But they don't go into the he's slowly bleeding into me kind of thing, which is what I think Alan Moore is trying to say here.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And also, so Swamp Thing and Paul have a pretty touching moment too. Where,
Yeah, a little heart to heart.
They start walking, and you know, Paul asks him, you know, what did the demon show you? What fear did it show you? And Swamp Thing mentions I saw fire, you know, like when Alec Holland died.
Yeah.
And he says, yeah, I was afraid. And Paul learns that, you know, even monsters can be afraid, and it makes it all more relatable.
It helps him, I think. I like that actually. It was really touching. Kind of. It was an interesting bit of closure. It wasn't just like, all right, traumatized child, go back to the fucking school. It was like, hey, by the way, monsters are scared too a little bit sometimes. You know, like, you know, and I don't know that aspect of that little bow tie on the end of the story.
I want to make a point
to me.
Paul still walks weird as fuck. Look at that. As he's walking towards Elysium Fields, he still walks weird.
Yeah.
So he's not fully healed from the trauma, I think. Because he walks weird as shit.
Oh my god!
There he goes, running off like a weird flailing arm blow up doll.
He's got this weird
selling used cars.
Gait. Yeah, as he's walking away, he's got this weird flailing gait. That's, you know.
Just go back to your school, weird kid. Woo! Everything's fine. I'll just go back to the swamp where I belong, you know? And then suddenly Matt picks Abby up in a normal
Hey, Matt's
car.
totally
Not
fine.
smashed to death.
Matt's fine.
Everything's
Matt's
fine.
fine.
Everything's
He wasn't drinking. Also, the car.
Everything's fine.
The car is fine. Dave,
the
do
car is
later
fine.
issues explain that? Because the car was crashed. How is that?
Demons can repair cars. I don't know if you
There
knew
is
that.
a little bit of an explanation like that, not directly. But I mean, you learn a bit more about what's going on.
When you sell your soul to a demon, does it reverse time
Takes
and
your
your
car.
car crash goes
No,
right
that's-
back up to the top of the hill? Your car's put back together. All the bolts fly back into the right place.
What's weird is if this were Lisbeth and Dennis, a car crash would only make them want to fuck more.
Yeah,
So-
that's true. Yeah. Well, but
Anyway,
then
this was dedicated
Dennis
to-
would want to reunite and like figure out their lives together, and Liz would just shut him down.
But this whole issue was dedicated to Jack Kirby, who, of course, is famous for trying to take credit for a lot of Stan Lee's creations.
Yeah,
just
Derby
in
is,
comic history. That's issue 27. We're done. Those are the issues.
Yeah, that's the end of a Saga of the Swamp Thing book 1. What'd you boys think?
Well, before we do parting thoughts, Dave, any other kind of like meta note, research notes about issue 27?
The only other notes that I had are that the letters page for this issue is all about how if people are writing about issue 21, and it's like overwhelmingly positive, just praise for 21, all up and down. And they don't say, I mean, they said that they got more mail for that issue than like any prior issue of the series. So
Really?
it definitely struck a nerve with people, put it on the path to this being like, again, like one of DC's best selling titles for years.
Yeah.
You know, like on the back of this, you know, eventually this becomes one of the flagships for the Vertigo line that's launched.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like this particular volume runs for 171 issues, like all the way into the late 90s. Like because of the success of this run, the second Swamp Thing movie gets made, and then the TV show.
They got to keep making Swamp Thing media.
But yeah.
What, Dave, was Sandman Vertigo or was that DC?
That's Vertigo.
That was Vertigo.
Yeah.
Began as DC, and Karen Berger was also the editor on that, and she spearheaded to launch Vertigo with Sandman and Saga and Swamp Thing as the like marquee new titles to like introduce to the idea that like this is a new imprint. It's going to be more adult themed comics. It's going to be more.
Yeah, they were like the flagship of the Vertigo, comics.
Yeah. Well, they just did more kind of occult horror magic.
Yeah,
I mean, Constantine was Vertigo. They just did kind of more.
Constantine spins off of Swamp Thing to start Hellblazer. Yeah. I mean, it's.
Dave, did you read a lot of those back in the day? Did you read a lot of the Constantine and all the other Vertigos, or did you just like stay heavy in Swamp Thing and just follow Swamp Thing like a lunatic?
I stayed heavy in Swamp Thing. I mean, I've read all of Sandman, but I wasn't reading it at the time. And I've tried to read Hellblazer. Like Hellblazer, the early series is very weird because it's very closely tied to Swamp Thing at that time, which is around the 70s when Alan Moore has left it and Rick Veitch is now writing it, and they're doing weird shit about like religion. Like Rick Veitch famously left Swamp Thing because he wanted to write an issue where Jesus Christ shows up, and editorial said, yeah, that's okay. And then once he turned in the issue and they were already drawing it, they said, actually, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, fuck you.
Stop to that.
I'm done. So like the early Hellblazer stuff is just weird to me because it just feels like knockoff Swamp Thing. But some of the later stuff I do like.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried back in the late 90s, like early 2000s. I tried to get into Hellblazer of the time, but I just never got it. I don't know if it was too late into the run to really get into it, but
yeah, I was a latecomer. Like Vertigo, I don't know what it was. It wasn't that I wasn't interested in that kind of stuff, like outside of like the superhero realm. But I definitely wasn't reading a lot of like extra stuff that wasn't superhero related. Like I was reading so many superhero books at that point in time that like buying more stuff was like outside of my wallet. You know, it wasn't like my interest wasn't there. It was just like I was like, oh man, that's more.
Well, Sandman's an interesting one too, because that's one where I read basically the first trade and was sort of like, well, that was okay, but I'm not really interested in continuing this. And then the Netflix show, I saw like the first 2 episodes, and that was kind of interesting, but I'm not interested in continuing.
I didn't watch it.
So it's weird because I continually just have this reaction to Sandman of I don't really care to learn more. It's okay, but not really interested in learning more.
No, reading Sandman was really weird for me, especially the first trade, because I had read this first. And so much of that first trade is Neil Gaiman doing an abridged version of this. Like, he's rebooting a legacy character with a new origin story. he brings back Cain and Abel and the House of Secrets and House of Mystery, which come into this series in a couple of issues.
Yeah, right.
He brings back like a D-list villain in Dr. Destiny and makes him like the first big villain that Sandman has to overcome to like reestablish who he is as a character. It felt very derivative to me when I first read it, and then I think it finds its footing after that. But it was just weird for me to be like, he's just doing Swamp Thing, like.
Mhm.
And then later on, rereading this run, like all the way to the end, I was shocked to discover how much of Tom King stuff is in this too. That later on in the last issues of Alan Moore's run, Swamp Thing goes to outer space. Don't worry about it. And there's like
don't worry about it.
There's lots of green in space. Yeah.
Well,
there's
that's
lots
like
of
that's the whole point. Like that's a whole setup there is that like Swamp Thing's frequency to the green gets disrupted, so he can't connect to the green on Earth, and so he reaches out to find a green in space.
Well, I don't hate that. All right,
but like there's like a whole like couple of issue arc of him doing Adam Strange, and he just like Alan Moore writes Adam Strange the way Tom King writes Adam Strange, and that he does not have
interesting
things to think about Adam Strange.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
That's fantastic.
And he also has an issue that brushes up on the New God stuff, and a lot of the way he characterizes Darkseid I saw in Miracle Man.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it makes sense that, again, Alan Moore was a giant author. It makes sense that Tom King would be paying
100%.
homage or be inspired by
or influenced by
his characterizations. Yeah.
All right. Well, Patty or Al, do you hear something?
I hear, I've got weird buzzing like in my right earbud. I don't know if you hear it.
Oh, is it mine?
It's like this kind of white noisy sort
I can hear it. I can hear it.
Does this pass the Bechdel test? The Bechdel test. The Bechdel test. Does this pass the Bechdel test? The answer is probably no. This one doesn't. I don't think.
No, not at all. It's a very sad representation.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love it, and I like Abby as a character and all that, but at no point are there two women in a scene.
Not at all. If anything, Abby opines over Swamp Thing the whole time.
But they're talking about Paul.
Well, also it's it's also half a page. It's not even a full page.
I mean, it's like one, but I mean, like there's I think a couple of scenes of Abby talking to another woman, but they're always talking about either Paul or Matt or somebody else.
They're not just discussing their job, or just life in general, or just not Ben.
Yeah. So unfortunately, as good as the comic is, it does not pass the Bechdel test. So Alan Moore, let's do better.
I mean, Makamori test. Do you think she
eventually does?
Do you think she grows as a character, Al? Abby? Think she's a strong female character? Do you think she's a sexy lamp?
I think she's all those things.
Yeah.
I think
she grows.
She's got her 5 out of 5 wiki feet in that water. But she's a three-dimensional character. I mean, they set up her relationship with Matt.
Yeah.
They set up the relationship with Matt that isn't very healthy. She's got workplace relationships with people. I mean,
by the end of book 3,
but it's still but in terms of the Bechdel test, but strictly Bechdel test wise, this does not.
Not at all. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just go to recommendations, I guess, because let's just wrap it up. Listeners, unfortunately, Patrick has technical difficulties, so he won't be giving us his party thoughts.
Well, that's true. But also, I mean, there's a giant hurricane moving through Atlanta right now. So
I'll go first. I recommend this. If you've read comics before or not, I just recommend it. I thought this was great. No notes. Nothing more to add.
Well, I know where Dave feels on this topic, but why don't you go ahead and tell us, Dave?
I mean, it's the best run ever. You should read it, even with the compromised colors of the trades. You should read it. I mean, it's so good, and it only gets better. I think the next, I'd love to come back and do book 2, because I think that is like truly some of the best comic.
We'll
book
get,
story.
we'll get to that part. We'll get to that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why we would. I mean, at some point, yeah, let's just do book 2.
No,
and
no,
have it
no.
back
So
up.
we'll get to that part. We'll get to that part. Tell us
Okay.
about this book. What do you think? Recommendations? Would you recommend this to a new reader? Is there any caveat to the recommendation? Like, would you be like, well, read comics in general before you dive in? Because that was what I was saying at the beginning. Like,
Okay,
is there
well,
anything like a reservation in mind?
I think that there is a little bit of reservation there, only that you have to go in knowing that I think like Alessandro talked about, like the first few pages of issue 20, you're not going to understand what's going on. It's all just a big jumble of here's some people and now they're gone forever. Don't worry about them. And I think that if you don't have any background in the character, and if you don't have any background in comics where you're able to just kind of pick up an issue and just run with what you're being shown, I think that can be a difficult start, but I definitely think it's worth it.
I will follow it up with a solid recommend. This is a fantastic book. And yeah, of course, we'll keep reading this after the first book. But yeah, book 1, even just book 1, transformative for Swamp Thing as a character. Art-wise, again, I loved the vignettes. I loved the double-page spreads. I loved the title pages where they spent time clearly like spelling out words in the swamp and like having people's names drift off of wood in the water. That kind of thing. Writing-wise, Alan Moore crushes out of the park. It's fucking fantastic book. Specifically, the Justice League episode, weirdly enough, like stands out to me because it's a weird entry into the series, and yet it wasn't driven down his throats by the editors. We don't know, but he handled it in such a way that it like flowed through the series, and it made it like a perfect representation of like why the Justice League isn't in, or regular superheroes aren't in this book, and it kept true to the horror aspects that is the book as a whole. And I know, loved it. Highly recommend. Yeah, A+.
All right, that's it. We did it. That was Swamp Thing, Saga the Swamp Thing, book 1.
We did it, Al, but there's a special guest here, so we need to say a few words. Dave, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Loved your knowledge. Your insight was a wonderful injection to our show. Liked having you on as a 4th guest. It was great. I hope our analysis held up to your standards.
Oh, for sure.
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, this is the point, Dave, where you can talk about how great we are and how nice it was.
No, it's not. This is our time to talk about how great Dave is, Al. Your love of the series is clear, sir. Really enjoyed your commentary throughout our couple episodes. Thanks for being on, man. It was really fun having you on as a guest.
Especially, I love the Sting tidbit.
Pleasure having you on.
Like the Sting stuff. Yeah, thanks for joining. And definitely, if you're up for it, let's do book 2 at some point.
Exactly. Let's revisit Swamp Thing in the future, and we'll bring you back on for like the next book, or maybe we'll read a couple into the future and we'll have you on for book 4, whatever you recommend. Like, we have to focus on book 5. We'll read all, we'll skip forward and read in our free time and catch up to a storyline you want to read or something. We'll bring you back on.
So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thanks, Dave. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Again, we're on iTunes, Spotify, all of that. This was issue 1 of the Swamp Couch, the first ever Swamp Couch. Just stay tuned for more.
In Patrick's stead, good journey, I guess.
Good journey.
Yeah.